Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Build Resilience and Modernize Your Infrastructure with Rubrik and AWS. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a great event lined up for you today. This event is brought to you in partnership with Rubrik and AWS. Before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the format here of the webinar. First off, my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. We want this to be an educational event, as always, here at Actual Tech Media. We're all former IT professionals ourselves. We know how tough it can be out there in the world of IT to solve your technology challenges. And this event is designed to help solve those challenges. So we encourage your questions there in the questions panel. I see many of you have already found it. We welcome your hello and good afternoon messages from across the United States and around the world, but we also want your technical questions. So we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event, so get your questions in early. We also have a number of resources available there in the handouts tab for additional information on today's topic. You'll find a customer case study on how Meredith Corporation streamlined their architecture and achieved global unified data management with Rubrik's Polaris solution, and then also an excellent resource on feeling compelled to go to the cloud. There's a reason why. Make sure that you check out those really cool resources in the handouts tab. There's also a Rubrik for AWS data sheet. And then finally, at the end of the webinar, we'll be announcing the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms can be found in the handouts tab. And then finally, we also have another Amazon $50 gift card for our best question prize winner. This is something new we started this year that is designed to help encourage some questions. If you have a question on your mind, maybe you're not quite sure if you should ask it, go ahead and do it. We encourage your questions, and we'll contact the best question prize winner after the event. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you to our two expert presenters. Welcome Mr. Joe Kelly, Cloud Solution Architect at Rubrik, and Mr. Garesh Chanchlani, Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. Great to have you both on. Before I hand it over to Joe first, I've got a poll question for you out there in the audience. The question on your screen is, where are you currently running your workloads that need data protection? On premises, in the cloud, both, hybrid, or not quite sure. So I'll give you a moment to answer that question, and then I will be sharing the results so you can see how you stack up with your peers on the webinar today. All right, thank you everyone who responded there to the poll. We appreciate that. We've got a number of other polls throughout the event, and we appreciate your feedback, and hopefully you find it interesting to see how you compare with your fellow IT professionals on the webinar. So let me share the results now. And it looks like 29% said on-premises, 53% have both hybrid and on-premises workloads, 3% are only in the cloud, 12% not quite sure. And with that, I'll hand it off to Mr. Joe Kelly. Joe, it's great to have you. Take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, David. Appreciate the time. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Again, my name is Joe Kelly. I'm a Cloud Solutions Architect with Rubrik. So let's go ahead and get started. So for those that don't know, Rubrik is a cloud data management company. And what that means is not only do we have backup, we can back up and protect your workloads on premises and in the cloud, we also enable our customers to get more out of their data, which I'll explain here in just a minute. We've been around for about 7 years now. We have over 1,600 employees, over 2,500 customers across the globe. We're one of the fastest growing enterprise companies in Silicon Valley history. And as of last year, in July 2020, Gartner placed us as a leader in the Magic Quadrant with the best vision. So why are companies adopting Rubrik, I think is a good question to start with. We make backup recovery simple. And that's both operationally and architecturally. So, however, it goes a lot deeper than that. We also understand what's top of mind for our customers. So whether it's to drive operational efficiency, bring products and services to market faster, security, governance, cloud mobility, all the buzzwords, our product solves for these value drivers. So let's kind of jump into a few slides just to see how we enable our customers to achieve their initiatives. What we are hearing from our customers are basically three major imperatives when it comes to their data. First thing is they want to modernize and automate data management so they can scale better. The second is they are on a path to the cloud, like probably most of you guys. They're moving from a single cloud to a hybrid or multi-cloud environment, and they want their data management solution to support and scale with them along that path. And then third thing is they want to get more from their data, right? They want to make sure that their data is compliant with regulations. And then most of all, they want their data secure from ransomware. We also are hearing from our customers that their legacy data protection systems are just not prepared for the future. And so they're complex, and kind of over the years, they've wound up with hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs to maintain. These same legacy systems suffer from slow and inconsistent recovery, and they often don't leverage a lot of the advancements in instant recovery. And not to mention they can be, somewhat expensive, right? So there's the capital outlay to maintain and upgrade the hardware, some of the cost and expertise required to manage a sea of backup jobs, and then the cost of downtime. And so modernizing and automating their data protection solutions is where Rubrik customers start getting immediate benefits. If you look at the backup and recovery space, really not much has changed over the last 20 to 30 years. So you have these large levels of complexity across multiple components, anywhere from your backup software to your server infrastructure. And then, of course, the processes that don't scale to meet your infrastructure requirements. Unfortunately, this legacy technology acts as a blocker to your modernization initiatives. So as you begin to migrate to the cloud, this architecture begins to break down. It doesn't natively integrate with the cloud. It's not built for automation. It's typically insecure by design. And so our vision was to modernize backup, recovery, archive, and DR. And really the success of our platform was enabled by these three principles. So number one, native integration with the cloud. Number two, leveraging automation and orchestration. And then number three, data security no matter where that data is. And so what we do is we take everything you see here and converge it into a single software fabric that's built for the cloud. It's easy to use, easy to scale, easy to automate, and secure by design. And as a result, we help our customers save on costs by increasing their productivity, reducing downtime, and natively integrating with AWS for more efficient operations. So how do we do it? Everything about Rubrik is centered around ease of use and simplicity at scale. So you can get started in under 20 minutes and kind of gone are the days of scheduling backup jobs, blackouts, exclusions. So Rubrik's going to automate the way you do backups with our SLA-based policy engine. And so this is going to dramatically reduce the hours you spend hand-holding your backups. So you set up your policies and you leave it to Rubrik to do the rest. Second, we are built for the cloud. In fact, our very first version of the product was natively integrated with AWS for hybrid cloud protection situations. We built a ton of innovations in the cloud with archival, instantiation, and general protection. And we built in automation into every aspect of our solution. And so not only can you automate SLA policy creation, we have robust APIs and SDKs that allow you to integrate Rubrik with your other tools and workflows. So we've already done a lot of the hard work for you, and we've created these mini integrations with solutions like ServiceNow, Splunk, Terraform, and many more to automate those workflows. And lastly, everything on Rubrik is encrypted and secure. So with Rubrik, once data is written, it can never be changed. This makes the data secure and immutable to ransomware attacks. And so outside of the simplicity and data protection, this is one of the biggest reasons why enterprises choose Rubrik. So let me go in a little bit deeper on how Rubrik can manage data protection and why it's such a time saver. So with legacy systems, you have to take all of your business objectives and turn them into this technical reality, right? So you have your backup admin that negotiates with each app admin or app owner on the specific VMs and apps that need protecting. And so they need to know when to schedule the backups and in which order, any blackout and exclusions, and then of course, retention and archive policies. And so get this, we've worked with some customers that have as many as 3,000 jobs that they're managing at any one point in time. And we've reduced those thousands of jobs to just a handful of SLAs. So here's how it works. Just state how often you want to take your backups, which is your frequency, and then how long you need to keep them, which is your retention. Then you decide when you want to archive and where you want to archive. And in this case, AWS. It's really that easy. So we have one policy that covers the entire data lifecycle. You can assign these SLAs across on-premises workloads and cloud. And so as your environments begin to scale, Rubrik's going to automatically discover and apply those policies to those resources. But the other problem is that legacy systems can be slow when it comes to actually recovering data, which is why you have backups in the first place, obviously. A restore can be super tedious. You got to find the files that you need to recover, then you got to actually reassemble the fulls and the incrementals to get back to the copy that's useful. Rubrik has changed all of this to just a few clicks because we radically simplified the workflow. So we let you search for a backup and then select the right point in time for recovery. Our global metadata index, which is sort of like this Google search, lets you look across your entire environment quickly. So there's no more siloed searching from a restore point or for a restore point. You pick the date, then under the hood, we figure out how to organize that data so it can be retrieved instantly. And then finally, data doesn't actually have to move, right? We're able to map that point in time snapshot directly to the host so you can resume operations instantly within seconds. Just fill this out here. All right. So from a cloud perspective, our customers are using Rubrik to accelerate their cloud usage. So we typically see customers use Rubrik to use cloud first for long-term data retention or archive. They send and store data cost effectively in the cloud with the ability to be able to search data on-prem. Also, kind of in that same space is one of the recent acquisitions we made of a company called Igneous. We've rebranded it as NAS Cloud Direct, but it allows us to do petabyte scale unstructured data backups and archive to the public cloud as well. It is a SaaS-based solution as well. Then if we look at the middle column there, we can see that once data is in the cloud, customers can then instantiate a cloud environment through automated conversion of the VMDKs or VHDs into AMIs. So for example, you could take an on-prem developer environment, you can move it into the cloud for rapid restores. And then finally, off to the right there is, once customers are actually running in AWS, we provide the ability to be able to natively protect those instances as a service. So for hybrid cloud enterprises, Rubrik extracts away a lot of the complexity of managing data protection for both on-premises and cloud environments. And so we've designed our solution so that data is owned and always under your control, so it never leaves your account. And of course, Rubrik intelligently uses data in AWS. So we do source size, dedupe, and compression, first full, incremental, forever. We only send data to AWS while maintaining knowledge of that information stored, where it's stored, and so that retrieval is quick without added time and hassle. And so case in point, Meredith Corp, one of America's largest media companies, they include such brands as People, Better Homes and Gardens, InStyle, and All Recipes. Huge organization with readership exceeding 180 million and nearly 135 million monthly unique website visitors. Prior to Rubrik, Meredith struggled with sort of a hodgepodge of different solutions as a result of multiple acquisitions. And so they had dozens of disparate systems, which was making things very labor intensive to monitor and maintain, but they were also under this constant upgrade cycle. So they began with us with an on-premise protection. And so initially they were spending over 80 hours per week managing and troubleshooting their backups. And we were able to deliver 90% management time savings and faster restores. Also, they obviously needed to protect their intellectual property. That was their number one priority. But it also needed to be easily accessible to their editors, producers, and designers. And so our native integration with AWS ensured they were able to maximize that storage efficiency as they scaled out their cloud footprint. And of course, a byproduct of this is that they also allowed them to migrate off of tape and eliminating that unnecessary overhead. We were also with them through their migration to the cloud. And so they adopted us for protecting their EC2 instances, especially with our tag-based protection. Their server admins were able to opt into backups simply by putting a certain tag on the EC2 instance. So ultimately, they were able to incorporate that into their automated server build process, which helped them to simplify their EC2 protection. And then what they really loved about us was our ability to unify management and visibility. So with GPS, they were able to get a simple bird's eye view of all their 4 sites and allowing them to centrally manage their infrastructure, but it also gave them insight into potential capacity issues. And so, like I said earlier, we see not only the data, but the metadata, the where, the when, and the how. And this is what allows us to get more out of your data. One of those areas of getting more is to help mitigate data risk. The first area is ransomware mitigation. Here are some of the issues we're seeing with ransomware. When it comes to ransomware recovery, it turns out your backup is no longer your last line of defense. So you assume that your backup data was actually backed up, but it turns out that it is vulnerable to cyber attack as well. We've seen this a lot in the news lately. Moreover, one of the biggest problems with ransomware is that it often takes hours, if not days, to figure out what the blast radius is, or even how many files are affected. And so recovery becomes virtually impossible. Figuring out exactly what point to recover from, finding the affected files, and then being able to restore across your entire org with a legacy solution can be somewhat impossible. So we've introduced a new way to help solve the ransomware problem by way of our radar solution. We can detect anomalies. We can discover files that have been altered or deleted or added because of ransomware. And then we let you easily find them and restore them with one click. So recovery from ransomware is super easy. And with Rubrik's immutable storage, you're always assured of having an uninfected copy of your data. And then the final area I'll mention is data governance. So the issue here is oftentimes with the vast amount of data most organizations have, they aren't aware of what's in that data, where it is, and who's looking at it. So a lot of organizations still haven't solved the data classification problem yet. Solutions out there can be complex, take months and months to implement. And so Rubrik can help discover sensitive, personally identifiable information and information subject to regulations that's hiding in that unstructured data. And so this is going to help you create an inventory to support current and future data privacy regulations. So what if you found over 20,000 exposed Social Security numbers sitting in a publicly accessible file share? How quickly could you identify that risk without a solution in place? With Rubrik, you eliminate the need for separate tools that tax your production environment. You can get started immediately with no additional infrastructure, no learning curve, no need to train personnel to babysit a new tool. And then similar to ransomware recovery, we leverage your existing backup data, which ultimately is going to drive more value from that data. All right, David, back to you.
Thanks, Joe. Really great presentation on how Rubrik can help to better protect data. We do have a poll question now for everyone out there in the audience. We want to hear from you. I've just brought up the poll that says, where do you store your backup data? Are you using tape, cloud, on disk, or not quite sure? So I'll give everyone a moment to answer this poll and share the results with you. And I'll go ahead and share the results now. And it looks like 46% said they're using cloud, followed by 35% who are storing their data on disk, and 12% using tape. I'm excited now to bring in Girish. Girish, what do you think about the results there?
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. My name is Girish Chinchlani, and I'm a partner solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. I work in the APN team, where APN stands for Amazon Partner Network, where we work very closely with partners like Rubrik. So interesting results there, Dave. It's good to see that almost 46% of you are using the cloud, right, for storing your backups. And then, but I do see almost 35%, and then use the disk, and then you have tape users as well. So all right, so with that, let's get started here. So for those of us who are not very familiar with the cloud storage, let me first talk about quickly talk about the challenges that you have in dealing with either tape or disk devices. I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but quickly want to go through this one here. So for backup data, especially one that needs to be retained for long term, right, to meet your compliance and regulatory requirements, this is where you would end up using your tapes and tape drives, and then disk devices or storage devices like dedupe appliances and things like that. So as you can see here on the slide, managing tapes and storage devices is a very labor-intensive manual method, right? Where a couple of things need to be taken care of. You need to make sure you have space in your data centers to host all these devices and appliances. You need the resources who are knowledgeable, who know how to work with these devices, right? And then from a resiliency standpoint, you have to make sure that you are creating multiple copies of this data. Then from a scalability perspective, it can be very difficult to scale, right? So for example, if I fill up my appliance, my storage appliance, how do you add a new appliance? Can you easily add one? Or do you have to move the data from your backup data from that appliance over to a bigger appliance? Things like that, right, have to be taken care of. And then so with the shrinking capex budgets, it is it's an extremely difficult proposition here. And then there are, we see that it's very difficult to meet compliance regulations, right? When you have a large number of moving pieces in your backup infrastructure. So let's look at what AWS offers from a storage standpoint. Now, before we look at our storage services, it probably helps to lay out how our global infrastructure looks like, right? So this slide shows our ever-expanding global infrastructure where cloud computing resources are hosted in multiple locations worldwide. Now, these locations indicated by the blue and orange dots on the map, they are composed of AWS regions and availability zones. So if you think of an AWS region, that's a geographic area, right? So for example, North California or Virginia. And these regions are made up of isolated locations known as availability zones. So easy way to think about an availability zone is to think of it as a data center, right? And then each availability zone is composed of one or more buildings, and these AZs within a region are separated from each other by a meaningful distance and protected against joint failures for maximum resiliency. So at present, we have 25 regions spread out across the world and a total of availability zones within those regions. And then we have 6 more regions that are coming online, that will be coming online in the near future. So the key point here is that AWS regions are spread out worldwide, and you can choose to use AWS services in the region closest to you for lowest latency and maximum performance. So here's a representation of the various storage services categorized by file, block, and object, and the key services under those categories. So under file services category, we have Amazon EFS and Amazon FSx. Under block, we have Amazon EBS, that is network attached block storage, and Amazon EC2 Instance Store, that is temporary local storage available with specific instance families. For backup solutions, one of the most popular storage services are the object services like Amazon Simple Storage Service or S3, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with. And then the various storage classes under that, such as S3 Glacier and then Glacier Deep Archive. With these services, we offer 11 nines of durability as we keep 3 copies of data, with each copy stored in an independent AZ, right, that is separated from the other AZs by a considerable distance. So if you recall the global infrastructure slide where I spoke about the availability zones and how multiple AZs make up a region, in case something was to happen to a particular AZ, you can continue to use the services from the other AZs in the region, right, thereby having no impact on your business. In addition to these storage services, we also offer a wide variety of data transfer services that help customers move large amounts of data to AWS in an efficient and cost-effective manner. So this category of services includes Direct Connect, that gives customers the a dedicated bandwidth from their data centers to AWS, and then services like Snowball, where which basically is an appliance where you can copy your data and then send it over to us at AWS, where we'll copy the data back into S3. And diving a bit deeper on the storage classes that we offer under the S3 umbrella, you have various options available here based on frequency of access. So if you have data that needs to be frequently accessed, such as your short-term backup data, that is typically retained for 30 to 90 days, then we have classes like S3 Standard, there is S3 Intelligent Tiering, and S3 Infrequent Access as well, right? That fits this need. The key point here with these classes is that when you need access to your data, you can get access in milliseconds. Now, for data that needs to be retained for long periods of time, which is multiple years, we offer classes like Glacier, S3 Glacier, and then Glacier Deep Archive that are offered at a very competitive standpoint, very similar to that of tapes. So note that with these classes, you get 11 nines of durability, where we keep 3 copies of data. So this slide highlights the main benefits that you get when using AWS Storage for your backup data. For one, it provides an integrated platform where you have various storage classes available as different services under one roof. It also provides a highly secure environment with multiple options available from AWS and AWS partners for encrypting data at rest and in motion, for tighter access controls and various other security features. It is very easy to maintain compared to on-prem storage solutions, right? The interface is simple, globally available over the internet. Customers can just need to go to the AWS console and create a bucket in the region of choice and start using that. There is no need to know the details behind how that data is stored, which is all managed by us. And it needs no maintenance or frequent hardware and software upgrades. It can also automatically scale up in terms of capacity and performance, so based on your business needs. So for example, with S3, you get virtually unlimited capacity. So if your data grows, S3 automatically scales, and there is nothing that you as customers need to do there. Finally, it offers an OpEx model where you only pay for what you use. So there are no upfront costs, no yearly maintenance costs, no upgrade costs, and things like that over there. You do not have to pre-purchase storage in anticipation that it will be used. You only use what you need, and you only pay for that. For customers to meet their compliance needs, we have various certification and assurance programs that we work with, and the key ones are highlighted here in the slide. So we have over 200 compliance, governance, and security certifications. Some prominent examples you see here are ISO 27017, that is a standard for security controls for cloud services. ISO 27018, that deals with cloud privacy, certifications like SOC 1, SOC 2, and SOC 3. Customers could also be HIPAA and PCI compliant as well as GDPR compliant on AWS platform. So with that, let's shift our focus to the new features that Rubrik has recently introduced. So as I covered in the earlier slide, right, we offer 2 archive storage classes under our S3 umbrella, Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive, that are designed to offer a cost-effective solution for data that needs to be retained for long periods of time. So with Rubrik's latest release, you can use both of these storage classes for your fulls as well as incremental backups. And this gives you the cost as well as performance advantage in addition to simplifying your backup infrastructure. So let's see how this works. So basically, as part of Rubrik's cloud archival feature, you can specify that you want your backups to be stored on either Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive. When you run your backups first land on S3 Standard, where Rubrik does some of its magic of verifying the data blocks and getting them ready to be stored, and then sends them off to Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive. The critical metadata for your backups is stored on S3 fast access tiers, which is S3 Standard, while backup blocks, which is majority of your backup content, they're actually pushed to the archive tiers. So you end up using very small percentage of space on the fast access tier, but most of your backup data resides on the low cost archive tiers, giving you that cost advantage. And the final point here is that Glacier has a couple of different retrieval options for accessing your data based on how fast do you want to access it. So there are 3 modes. The 2 modes are standard. There's a standard recall mode, where you start getting access to the first stream of data in around 3 to 5 hours. Then there is a bulk retrieval mode, which can take a little bit longer, but it's great for data that you don't need to have access to immediately. There is one more mode called as the expedited recall mode, where for an additional fee, you get access to that first stream of data in a little under a few minutes. So if you have stored your data for long-term retention and you need access to it, for some reason, you need fast access to it, this is an option to use for that. And then Rubrik today fully supports the expedited method. So based on your recovery needs, you have access to all of these options. One thing to note here is that expedited recall method is supported only with Glacier and not with Glacier Deep Archive. So you need to factor that in when choosing the storage class for storing your backups. And here is an eye chart that shows you how much of an effect these tiers can have on your overall costs. So I've taken a very simple example here. Let's say you need to store 10 terabytes of data for a year. If you choose S3 standard, that is going to cost you around $2,800 or so, and then costs are based on our current pricing in the US East 1 region. Now, if you store the same data in S3 Glacier, storage costs go down by almost 82%, costing you only around $490 or so per year. These costs go down further if you choose Glacier Deep Archive, which is the lowest cost storage class in our portfolio, right? So it is going to cost you almost only around $121 for the entire year. So you have these options available. Choose the right class based on your data retention and access requirements, and save on overall cost of managing your backups. Please note that the slide shows only the storage costs for simplicity. So costs such as the cost of recalling your data from archive tiers or data egress charges if you are restoring this data back from AWS to your on-prem application, that will be additional. With that, I would like to hand it back to David.
Thanks, Girish. Great presentation. We do have a poll question now for everyone out there in the audience. I've just brought it up on the screen, and it says, what are the top concerns that you want to address? And notice that this is a multi-select question, so feel free to select more than one. If you have multiple concerns, of course, ransomware, storage costs, recovery time, or just the complexity of your existing solution. And thank you for all the excellent questions that have been coming in there in the questions pane. We're about to start our Q&A here in just a little bit. If you have a question, now's the time to get it in. All right, lots of good responses coming into the poll. Let me go ahead and share the results of this now. And it looks like ransomware came in at the top there. 63% said ransomware, rough tie between storage costs and recovery time. Joe, what are our next steps?
All right, thanks, David. So next steps, I encourage you guys to go out to www.rubrik.com. We have a lot of great content out there. And as of about, I think a month ago, we had our customer conference that we do every year called Forward. And so registration is required to be able to access a lot of that great content, but it is free. So I do encourage you guys to go out there and take a look. Also, we have calendar events for what we refer to as Camp Rubrik. So it allows you to get hands-on experience with our products. So you can see guided demos. And then, of course, you get access to a lot of Rubrik's best and brightest, and you can see where we're headed in the future here. Also, if you wanted to get some hands-on experience just at your own pace, you could go out to the AWS Marketplace. If you search for Rubrik Cloud Cluster, BYOL, we have a virtual instantiation of our CDM product. This is not our SaaS-based solution, but it is our CDM product where you can get some hands-on experience with that. And then finally, we also offer backup modernization assessments. So these are performed through select partners, but they'll give you insights into cost savings, ransomware risk analysis, and modernization benefits for your environment. Thanks, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Girish. We do have some questions for you. So let's go ahead and kick off our Q&A session now. While we do that, I'll just bring up this poll question for everyone out there. What additional information would you like about the Rubrik and AWS solution that you learned about here on the event? So we appreciate your response to that. And now let's get started with some Q&A here. Joe, Girish, you ready for some questions?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. First question here came in from Bradford, who's asking, is it possible to tier deep and instantaneously upgrade to S3 standard in the event of a compromise or disaster? Girish?
So the question is it possible to tier deep to S3 standard in the event of, so yeah, so what happens is, we offer two storage classes, right? Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive. With Glacier, the recovery, with both the classes, the recovery is a two-step process. You need to recall the data from these archive storage classes onto a class which is very similar to S3 standard. So that's the first part of the process. And to do that with Glacier, we offer the expedited recall method. So with that, you can start getting access to the first stream of data in 3 to 5 minutes. With Glacier Deep Archive, if the question is specific to Glacier Deep Archive, then that is not possible today. With Glacier Deep Archive, if you use the standard recall method, it takes around around 12 hours or so to get access to the first stream of data. So you need to, if that is the requirement, then I would recommend that you go with the Glacier class that offers the expedited recall method.
Got it. Okay. There's another question here about when it comes to Rubrik, do you have an option to send the backup data to multiple locations, for example, for redundancy? Joe?
Yeah, we do actually. And so if we were trying to do that within a single SLA, we do have support coming for multiple archive targets within a single SLA. However, you could utilize multiple SLAs based on the classification of data. So you could have one SLA that sends data to an archive that's short-term in nature, and another SLA that sends data to an archive that's long-term in nature. So the answer is yes, you could.
Great. There's a question here from Elena who's asking, what's the process typically to implement this solution? How long would it take to get started?
So if we're working from an on-premises perspective, probably within a couple hours to get it going, get a brick going. If you're operating within the cloud space, so if you're running our CDM product within AWS, same, probably a little less time because you don't have all the requirements of the hardware that you have to deal with. But typically, probably about an hour to get a CDM cluster up and running. And then, of course, with our SaaS-based solution, less than 30 minutes to get that going, to be able to protect workloads in AWS.
Very cool. Yeah, not long at all. Here's another question kind of related to the on-premises versus cloud. They're asking, is there a pro or a con? Like, do you get better performance running Rubrik on-premises versus running it in AWS? Or how do folks decide where to run Rubrik?
I think it depends more on their use case. So obviously, if they have workloads on premises, then they would use a brick on premises to be able to back up those workloads. And then if they needed to, they could archive out to AWS. But in situations where they just had a number of workloads on AWS and they wanted to protect with native capabilities, so they wanted to use native create snapshot, create image APIs. That solution obviously requires no infrastructure. We could do that very easy with our SaaS-based solution. So again, it just really depends on our use case. Also, if you're running VMC on AWS, we would require Cloud Cluster for that, or our CDM product for that. If you're running in GovCloud, we would require our CDM solution for that. So it really just depends on the use case.
Okay, makes sense. Next question here, Warren is asking, how does Rubrik help with addressing or detecting PII data, personally identifiable information out there, and does it have the ability to scan that data and detect it in some way?
It does. That's via our SaaS-based solution via Sonar. So I encourage you to go out to Rubrik.com and read up more on Sonar. So we have Radar for ransomware mitigation, and then for that data governance piece, that would be our Sonar solution.
Okay, nice. A question here from Charo who's asking, is there a free trial available for AWS?
There is. It's so you could go out to the marketplace and under the marketplace search for Rubrik Cloud Cluster, and you could go ahead and deploy that in a single instance and get the CDM product up and running pretty quickly. And then we would require with that CDM or with that CDM solution, we would require an RBS agent, which we call an RBS agent within the guest instance to be able to back it up. But you could do that; would be free in nature. Yep.
Very nice. Yeah, that sounds super easy to get started. Here, Martin's asking if they did run Rubrik in the cloud, where would the backup data be stored? Would you want to move it somewhere else, or how do you protect the backup data if the backup data is in the cloud?
So, as we were going through the presentation and whatnot, we really have, a couple of different solutions as it relates to backing up cloud entities. And so, to answer that question, if you were doing cloud native backups, which means if you were using our SaaS-based solution to be able to back up those workloads, then they would we would use native capabilities to be able to perform those backup operations. So we would use EBS snapshots to back up your EC2 instances. If they're encrypted on the source, we would encrypt those snapshots secondarily. If you're running our CDM product, the underlying disk for CDM in our CDM product I'm referring to as Cloud Cluster, those do use encrypted EBS volumes under the covers. However, we do have a product that's coming out to kind of minimize some of the storage costs associated with running those EBS volumes. It's called Cloud Cluster ES, and so we'll be able to natively provide that capacity to Cloud Cluster on the back end within S3. And so there's a couple of different solutions there.
Very nice. Very nice. Let's see. Vicky's asking, how long would it take to restore the backup data? Of course, I know it depends on the size of the data that you're restoring, but how would someone kind of know the answer to that ahead of time?
I would encourage you to reach out to Rubrik directly, and we could certainly come in and give you more specific information on your data and how often or how quickly we could back that data up and restore it. So really, as she mentioned, it would be very hard for us to answer that on this webinar.
Okay. Great advice. Yeah. Let's see. Here's another good question for Girish. Is there any difference in the durability or availability of S3 versus Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive?
Yeah, so I mean, it probably helps to define what is the difference between availability and durability. Availability refers to the system uptime, right? That's the storage system is operational and can deliver data upon request. Whereas durability, on the other hand, refers to the long-term data protection, right? So stored data does not suffer from any sort of corruption. From a durability standpoint, all of our storage classes are designed to provide 11 nines of durability, as we, at a minimum, keep 3 copies of data spread out across availability zones, except for one storage class called as the one zone IA, where we still keep 3 copies of data, but all within a single AZ. So in very simple language, what 11 nines of durability means is that if you store 10 million objects with Amazon S3, you can, on an average, expect to incur a loss of single object once every 10,000 years, right? And then if you look at the availability, so S3 standard storage class is designed for 99.99% availability. The S3 standard IA and the S3 intelligent tiering storage classes are designed for 99.9% availability. The one zone IA storage class is designed for 99.5% availability, and then the Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive storage classes are designed for 99.99% availability with an SLA of 99.9%.
That's incredible. Once every 10,000 years. That's really amazing. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Another question here. They're asking, does Rubrik encrypt all data at rest and in flight with AWS?
We do. Yeah. Checkbox to both. We use TLS 1.2, I believe, for in flight, and data at rest we encrypt with standard EBS encryption if you're using cloud cluster. Yep.
Excellent. And then there's a very lengthy question here from Christian, but I think, to try to paraphrase it, I would say, mainly their challenge or Christian's challenges around migration. If they are migrating from an existing solution that uses tape, can you talk for a moment about kind of the process and best practices or recommendations around that?
So migrating from a tape-based solution to a disk or cloud-based solution?
That's right.
That's a good question. Not sure I've encountered that yet. I would say, typically you would need to let that data phase out on tape, but and so then you would have some sort of cutoff point where you would start to eventually phase in archive to whatever your new archive location is, whether that's cloud or disk somewhere. So not sure I've encountered that so forth or here at Rubrik so far, but I think that would generally be my answer.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, sounds like a good question to sit down and chat with Rubrik about and get into the details and do some analysis there on the process.
Absolutely.
Next question, which Amazon storage classes does Rubrik support?
So we support standard IA, and this would be for our cloud out or archive feature. Standard IA, standard one zone IA, and then of course Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive.
Okay. And then they're also asking, can I use multiple storage classes for short-term and long-term data sets?
Yep, you can. I think that was a question earlier. Yes, we can do that within a single SLA. Here real soon, we'll be able to do multiple archive targets coming here in our summer release, 6.0 release. But today you could do that with multiple SLAs. Yep.
Excellent. Let's see. I think we've covered most of the questions out here that we have time for. Joe, Girish, any final questions that you wanted to make sure that we cover before we wrap up?
No, not from my perspective, David. I definitely appreciate everyone's time, and please, we encourage you guys to go out to Rubrik.com and of course Amazon.com and get exposure to both angles here. So thank you very much.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Girish, and thank you to everyone out there in the audience for joining us on the webinar today. We really appreciate all the excellent questions. Don't forget to respond there to the poll question that's on the screen before you go. We do appreciate your feedback. And of course, also check out the handouts that are available there for download in your audience console. There's a case study. There's a really cool infographic as well. So make sure that you download those, and also the data sheet for Rubrik for AWS. And finally, I'll go ahead and announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. This is going out to Matthew Warner from Maryland. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you to deliver that gift card, and also the best question prize winner as well. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. We really appreciate your participation and encourage you to check out Rubrik and AWS for more information. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.